Hello! So, I think I'm not burnt out anymore. Oh, let's try again. Hello! Welcome! I'm Lauren, an artist who recently completed PleinAirpril. PleinAirpril, weird word to say, but the challenge is to paint outside plein air for every day in April. And in my heart, I succeeded. I didn't paint quite every day. There were 4 days that I missed, but I was thinking I was going to miss 5. So I did better than I thought I was going to do. And in this video, I just want to talk about the experience, how it went, because it was a lot, but it was also a lot of fun. I just started with, these are just some of the supplies that I used. I just thought it would be nice to have a kind of more interesting background. Just quickly, I am a beginning artist. It was about this time last year where I decided I really wanted to learn how to paint. I'd dabbled a little bit, very little bit in the past, but I've basically done something creative and artistic almost every day since then, so almost a year. And so a couple of months after that, I tried doing some of the stuff outside. So I haven't been painting plein air very long, but I do absolutely love it. And in that year, these are some of the supplies that it turns out I love to use. And so these are now the supplies that I enjoy taking out with me when I do stuff outside. For base colors, and even sometimes for the whole painting, gouache is my go-to. This palette stayed moist about halfway through the month, but it still worked for what I was using it for. I always used white from the tube. I love colored pencils now, or pencil crayons, so those definitely show up. These are the brushes that I use for my gouache. I also like these Neocolor 2s. They're water soluble, like wax crayon, basically, like crayons that have better pigment payoff but are also water soluble. I don't really use them with water very often, but I do love them. So I just thought we'd start with a nice background here. As we start talking through, I thought I'd do a sketchbook flip through and just sort of talk about the things that I learned and the things that I was going through. So before the month started, I did try a few times, so that's what's on this side. But this was the first day of the challenge, and I'm going to try to edit in some of the vertical videos that I took for Instagram. So maybe I'll try to leave some space for that as well. But I just walked down to a lake and gave it a go. At this point, there was still a lot of snow on the ground. I definitely see an improvement from like my first plein air paintings last year, the first ones that I was trying, but there still was a lot to be desired here, but it was still a lot of fun. I sat down. I do like how these cattails turned out. So that night I did come home and I tried to make it a little bit more like stylized, try to make the image that I painted more stylized. So I tried a couple different versions of that. The next day on April 2nd, this was one. On April 2nd, this was only one of 2 days that I worked in a different sketchbook. This is, they're both Stillman and Byrne. This is the Nova series on the gray paper that's a little bit thinner, and I haven't really done much in here, so I did this one. I really didn't like it. I don't know if it was the gray paper or I kept forgetting like my white gouache and things were, this was a brand of gouache that I didn't like as much. You know, it's okay, but it's hard to go from, like, this is done like in my studio, and then when you go outside, it's so hard to make things look as nice when you're in plein air. So I think I assumed that it was that sketchbook, so I just kept using this one then moving forward. On April 3rd, I was feeling a little sleepy, so I thought I'd just try some clouds, and I ended up, it was looking really yellow. It seems to have dried white or whitish, but this was really yellow outside, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. So I didn't work them too much. It was a very like quick cloud study of the day, and I also did a little bush from my front yard. The snow had melted, but there was obviously no buds or anything like that. Started playing with shadows a little bit. That's one thing with plein air that continues to, I think, drive anyone, no matter their level of experience, a little bit crazy, is that you get painting on a like semi-cloudy day like this, and then these really cool shadows show up, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna add them in really fast, and then they're gone as fast as they showed up. So that's what happened down here. All right, on the 4th, I spent a lot of days just in my backyard because I have a baby. So while she was napping, I would paint. So laundry basically didn't get done or put away for the entire month, but I did paint almost every day. So I did the study of some dead flowers from last year. Obviously, I played around with the colors a little bit, but I liked how that one turned out. That felt like a nice day. April 5th, I decided there was a lot of shadows, so I thought today is the day to try some shadows. So this is a bird house in my backyard and a bush. I moved this bush over. That is one thing that I do like about plein air that I'm starting to figure out, is that you don't have to, it's not trying to like replicate it. It's taking pieces of it. So this bush was sort of more over here, but I thought it looked better. Closer. And that was the 5th. On the 6th, oh my goodness, it was so windy. My stuff was blowing away. I tried, this might be the fastest I've ever done a painting that has like multiple things in it, and the paint was drying so fast, and it tried to blow away all the time. This was one of the harder weather days. It was cold and it was windy. So this is like a back alley with some fences. So based on how like challenging the day was, I kind of like it. I got really like good color payoff still at this point. The gouache paint was still, I poured this specifically for PleinAirpril. It was still quite liquidy at that point. I was and continue to struggle with these trees without leaves. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to focus on that for day 7. Just as hard when you're focusing on just that one thing. It kind of turned out looking kind of cool, but it did not turn out looking like it did. It actually did. But I mean, I do fight with that back and forth. I want to make it look like it looks, but I also like more stylized, illustrative kinds of looks to things. So then on the 8th, I went for a longer walk down to a river near my house. And this day was very interesting because it was one of the days that so many people stopped to chat. It was constant. And depending on the day, I feel a different level of like confidence in talking back. I always feel like I need to make it very well known that I am very new to this and it's just a hobby and it's just for fun. And that seems to make me feel a little bit better when they do talk to me. But they would people would walk away, but then they would make a point to come back later to see like how it turned out and things. And I mean, it never turns out great. So, I mean, it is what it is. I also had my first encounter with, there's a lot of people wanting to then show you their art, but specifically photography, it seems, which was a very strange thing. It seemed other people who painted just said that they painted, but people who their art form is photography, I looked at a lot of people's photographs this day. Anyway, I don't know if you can see the stress that came through in the image, but I decided not to sit on as busy of a trail after this. It is sort of a back and forth. I don't want to be off isolated where something can happen, but I also don't want to be too close to people. So figuring it out. But this was a very mixed media kind of day, and I think some parts were more successful than others. Although this is actually what this hill looked like. It just isn't very pretty, maybe. All right, then April 9th, went to the playground. My husband was nice enough to look after the kids while I painted this building. This is sort of getting more into that illustrative-y kind of style that I do enjoy, so I was actually pretty happy with this day. And I'm slowly learning about how to put shadows and things. And on April 10th, went to a more rural area, and these were some trees. I have there's just so many firsts and having not ever tried them before. So this was one of those. I did really like how this painting turned out in the end. Well, as much as I like sort of my plein air work, but it was one of those days that I came home and then tried again. So I made sure that these ones that were white were a little bit, here, can we fit them both in at the same time? Ones that were white were a little bit whiter, but I don't know. I feel like maybe the one that I painted plein air ended being more successful. It's hard to know. I get sometimes when I go through the ugly phase lasts a long time, I just start going crazy, and sometimes that actually helps a little bit. On the 12th, I painted a neighbor's house. This is done with, I guess I should be saying what these are done with. This was sort of my mainstays, gouache and pencil crayon, with occasionally a neo color, but often just gouache and pencil crayon. This day I broke out. I was starting to get a little bored, I think, of that combo. So I broke out my Posca markers, or I guess acrylic markers, because not all of them are Posca, some of them are Molotow, and painted a neighbor's house. Then there's a little free library in my neighborhood, so I gave that a shot. A quick little study, didn't love it, tried it again, liked it less. April 16th was a challenging day to love this. Oh, I missed the 15th. That's one of the reasons this was such a challenging day. I loved the 15th. I meet up with a local urban sketching group, and this is an area where we met up, and this is what I sketched that day on April 15th, and this might be my favorite piece of the entire month. So obviously on the next day, you do one of your least favorites, but I just love this one. I really like how the cars came out and the shadows are fun, and I seem to love buildings or things that have a lot of little dibbly bits to sketch. I think that is part of my evolving style that is emerging, so I really liked that one. But yeah, that's why the next day things didn't go well. That seems to be something common that happens as I go through this ebb and flow of art. So after not feeling like I did it and then it fell apart, the next day I was like, I'm going to try something different. And that something different was plein air stamp carving. So I do jump around with mediums and styles a lot. I know on Instagram, the people that I've befriended over this journey, a lot of people very much stay in a very particular style, but I can't for more than like a week or a project, and then I jump. But I seem to be coming now back to things. But I was feeling sort of over painting for a minute, so I was like, you know what? Plein air stamp carving. So this was one of the first things that came up green in my perennial garden in my backyard. So this is the leaf of a perennial geranium plant. And so I decided I would carve that. So it originally I left all this around. I think this is only the third lino cut or stamp, third or fourth maybe, that I'd ever done. So I didn't realize that you could make multiple stamps out of one block. So but I cut it away after, and did I stamp it again? Yeah. So I stamped it later when it got cleaned up a little bit. I'm thinking about putting these on some fabric possibly. Then so that was the 18th. The 19th got back to painting a little bit, just a corner. I wish that I would have trimmed this more or picked something. There was nothing. This was just more like road. Even if I would have drawn it in, I don't think it would have been that interesting. But I think the houses came together kind of nicely. And this was a nice day sitting outside. I had a good interaction with someone stopping by to take a look at what I'd done. They were very nice and just sort of interested, and just a very short, oh, what are you up to? I was just interested while you're sitting there. And it's like, oh, I just have a hobby of painting outside. And they're like, oh, that's cool. And then they, moved along. I'm not super chatty, so it's nice when you have a nice interaction, but you're not then stuck in a 15-minute conversation. All right, day 20, I went back to my plein air stamp carving, and this was a another green that came up in my garden that I'm pretty sure is a weed, possibly a perennial. Someone planted it sometime somewhere that now just seeds everywhere. It needs more detail. When I was outside, I just used like a stamp pad. I didn't use like the rolling of the ink, and it seems the ink allows the details to show a lot better. So this was all just like stamp pads, I guess they're called. Then on, I didn't date this next one, but this must be the 21st. 21st, 22nd, 23rd, somewhere in there. It seems that I'm going to have a break in one of these. I had a bingo card that I'd made so that I would try different things, that I wouldn't just always be painting landscapes or houses, because I wanted to try like some animals or some people, some like different looking buildings. So one of the ones was that I wanted to try during the month was to paint an animal, plein air. So we had have a bird feeder in one of our trees, and just as the very fast, I think I don't know what they are. Maybe I will ask someone who knows, and I hope I just put it on the screen here. But they're very fast. So trying to capture them, and I haven't also drawn a lot of birds, was tricky. I kind of like how this guy came out. This is what they look like flying. So I'm happy with that. Everything else was a bit of a miss, but absolutely beautiful day. Whatever day this was, somewhere in the 20s, was when I purchased, so I don't know if you ever heard of a gurney easel, but I learned about them and I bought one online, review coming, but this is the first day I had this and the first day ever that I've tried an easel. It was magnificent. It was magnificent. I just sat in my backyard I didn't have to, because normally I put this on a board and I have to hold it. So I normally only really paint for like 30 minutes max. And so I didn't have to hold it, so I could just sit there and relax. And I had a beverage, and as the birds would fly in, I'd try to draw them, they'd fly away. It was awesome. So then on the 24th, again, with the easel, made it so much easier to just like be able to sit back and look at the subject a little bit better. And I think that comes through in this painting of my garbage cans in my backyard. This is for like food waste and yard waste, and then garbage, and then recycling is just in bags where I live. But this, I really like this. This is one of my favorite ones from the month. I think it looks like what it looks like, and it's, you know, a little stylized, a little illustrative, I guess. So this was a fun day. So enjoying the new easel, being able to take it slow. On the 25th, which would be the next day, was my last plein air stamp carving. This is are they called leaves? It's from a cedar tree in my yard. I bit off a little bit more than I could chew on this one. This was a lot of carving. This took a lot of time. I did about like an hour of carving outside, and then I'm like, I have to finish this later. So I finished it that night. So this is the only piece of the month that I didn't like stop when I left, because I had barely outlined it by the time I got inside. Like, it doesn't look that much more complicated, but it took like 5 times as much time as any of the other stamps. So first print, and then I tried another one. They work so much better with like actual ink, so I didn't waste my time as much that time stamping it a whole bunch. On April 26th, painted a dead rose in my backyard, or not rose. These are the buds? No. Bulbs? No. Rose hips. There we go. Painted some dead rose hips. Then on the 27th, I went back to paint the lake from another angle. It's not amazing, but again, compared to last year, painting it at the very similar location, there's been so much improvement. I'm so glad that I kept that work so I could just see, and even just keeping an Instagram so that I can go back and see those. Like I put almost everything I make on my Instagram at Making Meaning Now. And it's so nice to go back and just look and see how much things have grown. With my bingo card, one of the things I wanted to try was people. I've never painted a person before, so why not do it plein air outside with my son, who could not sit still. So he was on his swing. He's got this cute little hat. This one, the 1 minute sketch, I tried to warm up. It's probably the most effective of all of them. And we got in there with the paint. Things went real sideways. He looks real old. But it was, again, a fun day. And then the last day that I actually painted was April 29th. This was quite the day because there's these industrial buildings and I drive by them all the time and always have an urge to paint them. So I put it on my bingo card to kind of force me to go and paint them. And they do not like any parking anywhere near them. There's security guards and signs and do not stop, keep driving kind of stuff. So I ended up just capturing a couple pictures and I did paint this one at home, but in the same style that I was planning on doing it when I was there. So that is the end of my month. I think some of the things that I learned the most were about just packing to go out. I can pack so fast now, which I think is going to serve me well all summer if I'm ever having the urge. I don't have to really think about what it is that I want to take. I can just, and I'm out. I know the setup that I like now, for sure, as well as just developing the confidence of it's okay when other people come over. I mean, it's really scary when they're like, "What are you doing?" But for me, as long as my instant response is, I am a new artist who thought they'd try painting outside, and everyone has been very nice. Some people stay a little longer than I would like and want to have longer conversations than I would like. But everyone has been very nice and respectful. And it might be that I just blurt out, "I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing," as soon as they ask anything about what it is that I'm doing. I hope you found that interesting. If you haven't tried plein air before, I cannot recommend it more. It is so much fun. Other than finding art as a hobby, which has added to my life in so many ways, plein air and painting outside or being creative outside, from painting from life, sketching from life, is one of my favorite things to do with that. It's been awesome and is not something that I will be stopping anytime soon. So if you've never tried it, give it a shot. Even just grab a pencil and a small book, sit in a corner where no one can see you, and then you can work your way up to bringing out some of those other supplies. All right. Thanks for hanging around. I hope you have a good day. Bye.